So what does a normal week look like for you?
It's never a normal week. That's why I love ministry. Trying to keep all you guys aligned with what God's called you to. And not do education, but do discipleship.
Right.
And the difference is, education can happen in a classroom, discipleship happens over life.
Right.
And so we always want to make sure that we're with our students, that we care about them 24/7, and, what God is doing in their life to be able to release them into all that God has for them.
Yeah.
So.
What was it like growing up in Newcastle?
I loved growing up there. I wasn't good in high school by any means.
Right.
I surfed pretty much most of my life.
Oh, nice.
There weren't many weekends at all that I wasn't surfing. And so I grew up surfing and then later on became a carpenter. I've always loved carpentry, always loved building something, looking back and going, wow. And so for me, when I came into ministry, that was the hardest thing ever because you're dealing with people's lives.
Right.
You can't look back at the end of the day and go, what have I done?
Right.
Because people's lives don't happen in a day, you know. It's something that you build consistently over years. I'm always building furniture for Cherie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, definitely. I just finished a deck out the back of our house.
Nice.
So I took some holidays and built the deck. So it's a whole lot more.
So the skills show up still.
Yeah, absolutely. In everything.
What was 1999? You ended up coming to Hillsong College.
Yeah, 97.
Was that a quick progression for you from going to carpentry to Bible college student, or was that gradual?
I got saved, and I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't get radically saved. You hear people talk about, they met Jesus and everything changed within a day.
Yeah.
That wasn't my situation because, firstly, I wasn't in a crisis. So, I wasn't, alcoholic or hooked up on drugs or anything like that where I needed an out. Right. Which you often hear those testimonies, and it's amazing that God does that. But then I did meet God in a little Catholic church, and I first sensed the presence of God, and it was there that, for me, I just knew I'm missing out. There's a piece of life missing. And from there, I started to pursue relationship with God the best I knew how, which took 12 months to kind of work out. And it was when I was over in South Africa, I went over there to surf for 3 months. While I was over there, I met a senior pastor who told me about this college. It was Sydney Christian Life Centre back then, and he said, you should go there. It's close to Newcastle, and the church is amazing. They're well known for their music. And so I'd heard of the music. I didn't know they had a college, and so I came to college. That was basically as difficult as it got, as spiritual as it got.
So it wasn't this big audible voice that came from heaven that told you this is the next move you got to do?
No, I just wanted to know the Bible. I thought if I'm going to read this book the rest of my life, it'd just be good to know something about it. Came here, realized that it was ministry training as well as learning the Bible. Still remember the first prophecy that Pastor Brian ever put over both Sanger and I in church, that we're going to see many come to know Jesus. I'd been saved about 6 months properly at that point, and didn't think God wanted to do anything with my life, but he saw something. And I remember sitting down next to Sanger going, man, this guy doesn't even know who we are. And Sanger goes, yeah, but he sees something we don't. And I just remember that just sinking into my heart going, that's what I'm called to do in life, to see potential in people that they don't see and to pull it out of them.
Raise, equip, empower, and release.
Yes.
Right, so there's a whole part of the college experience that is releasing people, but there's also, you hear a lot, the power of staying planted and being planted somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's always a tension, to be honest with you. You see people, they come to Hillsong College, they know they're called back to their hometown or back to their city, back to their nation. Chris Mendez, who felt called to South America.
Right.
I got another friend who's called to Berlin, and they both run amazing churches.
Right.
For me personally, I remember having to write down this mission statement, and the mission statement was simply to preach to the nations. I don't know what to put down. Like, what's a mission statement? What's a vision
seems
statement?
Simple enough.
I'm just new to this thing. So I just put down preach to the nations. And I remember driving home from college one time it was 2007. And, I just taught all week,
Yeah.
just giving myself. And I remember driving home going, God,
Yeah.
like, what am I doing, man? I just spent my whole week
Yeah.
teaching the Bible. I said, I'm completely spent. And I remember as I drove home, just a little bit frustrated about the fact that I had to teach this whole week.
Yeah.
I remember God taking me back to a time in 1997 where I was praying and saying, God, all I want to do with my life is teach the Bible.
Right.
And here I was literally 10 years later, all I was doing was teaching the Bible, and I'm complaining about it. And it was a complete mindset shift. And I just remember going, man, how amazing that I get to drive 8 minutes from my house to our college, stand before, this semester, 64 different nations. Most days I drive into college and I still cannot believe that I get to do what I do.
Yeah.
And people have to fly all over the place to get to nations. I just drive 8 minutes, there's 64 of them right there, ready to go, hey, how are we going to build the church? How are we going to grow the church? How are we going to disciple the younger generation and see the church continue to rise?
It seems like all it took was a perspective shift on the same calling.
It was.
It didn't seem like it was a different calling.
No.
So when it comes to calling, do you think we tend to overcomplicate our perspective on it?
Often we think it's about God releasing my gift. And yes, there's an element to that, but there's also a strong element of be faithful to the church. And so, for me, it's always been one of those, I just want to stay true. I want to stay faithful to what God's called me to. I don't want to be up and down, in and out of different churches and all of that. To be honest with you, sometimes it's a 2-lane freeway. It's I could do that or that, and they're both God options. Some students will come, I got 4 things that I can do, go back to. And we look through the 4 things and go, you know what? Every one of them is a great option.
Yeah.
Choose one and keep going. And so that's how I see the will of God. That's how some people are like, no, it's got to be the perfect will of God. I don't think there's a perfect will of God. I think there's a permissible will of God. And sometimes it's, well, I could do this in Sydney, I could do this in Cape Town, I could do this in South America, I could do this in Germany. As long as I'm staying faithful to the church, building the church, I think you're always in God's will.
Yeah. Going from where you started at college to now looking after the college, directly under our global senior pastor, Brian, that must have been a lot of hard work throughout those years.
Yeah.
What was that like?